everyone, welcome to Inspired Tarot Map. This is the third meeting with Belinda Gore and Ellen Colland, and we've met twice before this time, and we are talking about aging and how it feels to get older. And in this particular session, which is our closing session, two previous ones you can see they're going to be linked below. In this one, we would like to speak about things that you can do or embrace to, enhance well-being, different rituals, different practices, and then about maybe if the ladies have any regrets when they look back at their younger lives and would they do something differently. And I think because you guys are at this stage in your life when you can, look back and reflect. I'm around 50, you guys around 80, so there's nearly 30 years difference between us. What advice would you give to younger women or your younger selves if you could, go back in the past, what should we worry less about? I know it's kind of general, but like something that comes to mind, maybe something just springs up. I think it would be interesting to hear, from the perspective of both of you, what advice would you give younger women? And I also want to mention menopause, just because it's an interesting subject for me. And I hope we get like a few minutes to just chat about this one as well. But let's start with well-being practices and strategies, or however we can call it, rituals. What do you do to feel alive, I guess, and feel well? And have you done it for long, or is it just like, oh shit, I'm getting older, I'm 75 now, I better do something? Like maybe you can like place it in some form of a context if you can.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I didn't at 70 or 75 say, oh my gosh. I think, well, my mother died when I was 50. And I think for me, that was a wake up call about making sure I was doing a good job of taking care of myself. Um, at that time in my life, I was a psychotherapist. So when I worked, I was sitting, and I did go to a gym. I'd often like take off in the afternoon for a couple hours, go work out, take a shower, come back and see a few more clients. In that structured context, I liked doing that. I don't anymore. Um, I walk, um, even just up and down stairs, or when I'm out and about, or walking to the library or the bank or the post office. Something I've done for, I don't know, 25, 30 years, maybe longer than that. Wow. I have massage on a regular basis. Um, I have a massage therapist I've worked with, I'm sure, for 15 years. She's quite a healer. I say that she's helped keep me flexible and healthy. I take good vitamins and a few other supplements. I have a doctor who, my doctor was my dad's and his sister, my aunt's doctor. So she knows my family history, at least on that side. And she was good in doing a few preventative things. So that was, I think, helpful for me. So I drink a little caffeine, but not much. I drink a little wine, but not much. I try to manage sugar fairly well. But I'm not, I don't enjoy going to a gym or doing a structured sort of thing. I do Qigong sometimes. But I meditate every morning with a small group of friends on Zoom, and I do other meditations. I practice ritual postures um, at least twice a month, sometimes more than that. So what I'm saying is that's part of my spiritual practice, and I'm also part of a Diamond Approach group.
Mhm.
Um, um, I go out on my balcony every morning and greet the day, which gives me a great sense of well-being. Judy and I draw tarot and oracle cards every morning to kind of keep on track. Exactly. So all of those things are things that enrich me on a daily basis, a regular basis. I could stop now, Ellen, but
Okay.
what's, yeah.
Yeah, well, I am physically active, and I have always had a lot of energy. And so I have always engaged in some form of physical activity, for most of my adult life. But I'd say, one of the things that I am really happy I did was I started practicing yoga when I was 40. And I very intentionally decided to do that because I knew that yoga built strength, flexibility, and balance. And I was aware of the fact that I was going to need those things as I got older. I don't practice yoga anymore, as in take a class, but I do yoga positions almost every day. And I'm in a class, I do take a class once or twice a week called functional movement, which is with weights, and you do lunges and squats and stuff like that, which I never did before. Honestly, I never took a class like this before, but I decided it would be good for me to do it. So I started it this past year, and I love what it has done for my body because I've really become a lot stronger as a result of it. And in my retirement, especially, I took up hiking. I was always a walker, but started hiking. So the when Belinda and I met, we were doing a hike in Ireland, and that was my first organized multi-day hike that I had ever done. And subsequently, Dell and I have gone on multi-day hikes, primarily in Italy. And, so obviously we're hiking throughout the year. You don't just go on to one of those hikes without any preparation at all. And, hiking has been a big deal for us, but it's changing for us now. We're not hiking in the way that we used to. So we're doing more walking. I'm fortunate to live next to the ocean. So every day we walk. Usually in the neighborhood of 3 miles a day. We don't clock it necessarily. We pick a route and off we go. And so I would say, being in the outdoors every day is extraordinarily important to me, not just from a physical point of view, but that is part of my spiritual practice, to be very aware of the environment that I'm in, to stop, look at the ocean, look at the birds, look at the plants. Kind of, I would say a word that sticks with me through this time in my life is savor. And that's part of my spiritual practice, is to stop and savor the beauty of what's around me. In terms of a spiritual practice, I try to be very mindful of some of the core principles of Buddhism. I am not an expert. I am not terribly knowledgeable about the ins and outs of Buddhism, but something that I learned through the course of yoga in particular is that there are some qualities that Buddhists strive for in terms of, letting go of judgments, open yourself to joy, equanimity as you're going through the challenges of life. Those kinds of qualities are very important to me, and I feel like I am mindful of those qualities and try to live those qualities, not only because they enhance my feeling of well being, but I also am mindful of the fact that death is approaching at some point in time. I don't have a spiritual belief about what happens after death. And quite honestly, I don't spend any time even thinking about that. What I think about is living a principled life. Because if I live a principled life, whatever happens after doesn't really matter. I'm going to be in good shape if I live a principled life. And, so I would say that's my spiritual practice in addition to meditation. I'm not as regular as I would like to be. I don't do it every day. I probably meditate, I don't know, 4 times a week. I would like to get to 7 times, but I somehow get distracted with other things. But I think more of my focus is how can I live the best life I can live on a daily basis as my spiritual practice.
So one question, do you think this savoring, I like this word, does it come more naturally when you're older, or is it actually something that you have to choose to do?
It's a
You
choice.
kind of slow down, right? Naturally, like your body is not so fast, but like I know enough older people who like complain a lot and not very kind of they tend to see more negatives or always living in the past or before it was so good and now it's so shit and like there's
Yeah.
different types of people. So I think that's more of a choice. Yes, that's what you said, Ellen.
Yes.
I think that if there's anything to say to younger people is the recognition that we don't have control over the things that come into our lives. I mean, I didn't know that my husband was going to develop cancer and die from that. What I do have is the choice on how I'm going to be with that event that happens in my life, right? I can choose to be a victim. I can choose to be angry, or I can choose to be in the moment with it and to learn from it, to be with it. That's the choice. And I didn't magically cultivate that when I was 75 years old. If there's advice to give, it's cultivate that awareness that you do get to choose, right? And I think that's one of the things that ultimately serves me well being at this stage in my life because I very much do that. And the savoring, that's advice that I would give people that I didn't do that well. And it's, take a moment to just pause, you know, pause through the day. I was so driven, I was going through life so fast that I didn't really give myself that opportunity very often. And to just pause and look around you and express gratitude for something that you see. It doesn't have to be an hour every day. If you can be mindful of that throughout the course of your day, I think it really has a benefit.
And in fact, I would say that the practice of gratitude and acceptance
Yes.
are the big practices, even acceptance being that it's not a giving up. Acceptance is just, this is the truth about this moment.
Right.
And I like the serenity prayer. What is it that I can change? Let me have the wisdom to understand what can I do something about and have the courage to do it. But also, what do I not have an ability to do something about? And let me accept that with serenity, that if I can cultivate an ability to discern what I don't have the power to change and find it in my heart and my body to just be open to that, then I'm more likely to see the things that I can do something about and focus my energy there. But as we were saying with gratitude leads to savoring. I think that it's an appreciation of the multiple things that are so good, and I've got this one little grain of sand or a piece of gravel that's just getting at me, to put it in perspective.
Yeah.
So that maybe something's happening that's upsetting or horrible or whatever, and it's true, and it exists in a much larger frame.
Mhm.
And I love, Belinda, that you also use tarot and oracle every day, because I think that's also part of, like, enchanting your life in a way, and reflection and etc. I'm hoping I'm going to stick with it my whole life. Like, there is no day that I can
Yes.
pull cards. I love that. But I think also maybe when you're visual, when you love art, and I know that you do, there is something about cards that, like, are very, like,
Yes.
drawing me to them. Like, it's like having little art galleries in your hands. So that's really cool. So when you look back at your life, like, it sounds like you're dying tomorrow. Don't die yet, please. But when you look back and you think of yourself, like, yeah, let's say 50 or whenever, like, you think of yourself as younger women, is there something you would do differently, or not even maybe like this? Would you have this, like, ding ding advice for yourself, and you would say to yourself, oh, Helen, why did you worry so much about this thing? Or, like, that's actually not fucking important. Like, this is more important. Like, what would be the kind of advice you'd give to yourself? And maybe through this lens also we can benefit from this as well. Can you think of anything like that, or is it not really?
Oh, yes. Well, if I may, I'll say
Please
a little
go.
bit. And then one thing is, it's as Ellen was talking about the experience of her husband dying and what was going on. I think the most important thing is that every part of our lives is valuable, and to not be so judgmental or believe that it should be different, but rather look at, what am I learning in this part of my life? Now, looking back, I too was more of a workaholic than I would like to have been. I was more concerned about finances than I wish I had been. However, because I worked and because I put money aside, I have financial freedom now that is different, really, from what I used to have. But I still would like to say to my younger self, relax a little more. Don't push yourself so hard to achieve, to work hard, to um, live for the future. I needed to be more present, and I've learned over as I get older, I'm more and more able to live in the present moment and appreciate the present moment. So that's one thing that really comes to me.
Yeah. I would say, I would pretty much echo what Belinda is saying. And again, I don't mean to be talking about my late husband that much, but he was such a teacher as he was dying. But what I recognized as he was dying is, I talked earlier about the only thing that you have control over is the choice that you make on how to be with something. And I made a very conscious choice that I was going to try to live in the moment while he was in that 2 years of dying. That if I preoccupied myself with what was coming down the road, I was going to miss the moments of beauty that were there. And that, I think, is such an important lesson, because when I was younger, I was always future tensing. I was always going towards the future, thinking about the future, the future, the future. And I think that experience with him really brought me into the moment. And it doesn't mean that I lived in the moment every single time by any means. There was obviously sadness and fear about what was coming, but I didn't allow it to preoccupy myself. And I think that is one thing that I have carried from that experience, because it was such an important lesson for me. You hear about that all the time. Oh, stay in the moment, stay in the moment. And it was conceptual before that.
Mm.
I would say I don't have regrets about any choices that I made because I feel like I had a wonderful life. What I do regret is that I had a level of insecurity about myself, and that held me back sometimes because I was afraid that I wasn't good enough or that I wasn't going to succeed. And it took me, into this decade, I would say, before I totally embraced who I am and have let go of those feelings of insecurity. And I'm not sure exactly how I did that, so it's kind of hard to,
Yeah, that was
give
my next
advice to.
question. How did you do that?
Yeah, yeah. I wish that I could give you a simple answer to that. Again, I think it was a process that occurred over time. And I also, I don't know if this sounds odd or not, but we haven't really talked about the ancient postures. But in a lot of ways, I think that I've been taking those classes now for 4 years, I think, Belinda. And the effect of those classes is subtle, I would say. But I think being involved in the ancient postures and having the experience that I've had has facilitated a deeper understanding and appreciation for who I am as a human being. And I think we each have to find our own teachers in that regard. And so I guess if there is any advice that I would give, keep your eyes open to when the teacher appears, so that you can learn and grow when you're ready for it, really.
Oh, that's so true. Because yeah, and the teachers come and sometimes they go, sometimes they stay for whole life. You never know. But yeah, it's very valid. And I've also experienced those teachers like coming and going. Some, yeah, some stay forever, but very, very true. Anything else, Belinda, Ellen, anything else comes to mind?
In terms of advice,
Yeah, we all want more advice.
well,
How do we get older well? I wanted to say nicely.
here's, I often say, I'll have clients or students who will say, I want to transform my life. And I always say, but they're always saying, but don't make me change, and it's kind of like, I want all this, but change is demanding. And so the advice I would say is always be willing to push ourselves or stretch ourselves, go into the territory of the unknown. Like this nonprofit, I'm writing grants. I've never written grants. I'm not good at it. I don't really like it, but it's good for me because it requires me to work with my resistance, my attitudes. I truly believe that the only way this work, the nonprofit work, succeeds is through our connection with the spirits of the ancestors. So I have to be willing to do the things that are uncomfortable for me, not in a martyristic sense or a masochistic sense, but to say, yeah, I'm a little uncomfortable. That's okay. Let me ask for help. Let me learn. Let me practice. Let me be willing. And it's having that attitude that it's not like, I had a client once who told me that she was older than me, but she would turn 70. And then she found out about a tragic situation with her daughter. And she said, I thought that I got to turn 70 and just put it on cruise control, put my life on automatic, and then I wouldn't have any more difficult things to deal with. So if there's advice, it's that we embrace whatever it is that's uncomfortable and learn, you know, um, engage in learning, not just suck it up, but what can I learn from this and who can help me?
Yeah. You really sparked something for me, Belinda, because when I was young, like in my 20s and my 30s, I always believed that you reached a certain point in life where you had it all handled. You became an adult and it was all handled. That I'd say the beauty of life is that you're always, as long as you open yourself to it, you're always learning and growing. And that, I think that's an important part of what makes me feel more youthful, because I am always in that space of being open to learning and to growing. Um, there was another thing that I wanted to say, though, as advice. When I was young, I am Celtic through and through. I mean, my genealogy is Irish. And when I was young, I knew that I was very intuitive. But that kind of got knocked out of me, a little bit as I was getting older. And, we have a tendency to use our brains more to think through. And if there was any advice that I could give, is to open yourself up to that inner guide, because that inner guide is flawless, really. And I didn't often take the time, or I would dismiss something that was inside me saying yes or no, and I would dismiss it because my head was telling me to do something different. And I think that as I've gotten older, I have tuned more into what my intuitive self is saying, and I take the time to sit down and listen to what that intuitive self tells me. So I guess if I were to give advice to someone, it would be to cultivate that. Don't negate what your inner self is telling you, but to honor that and listen to that, is an important uh, attribute that I wish that I had developed when I was younger.
And
I think that, I
just,
think bringing up an important point, which is we all have to find our own way with that, right? I mean, meditation also provides that. The Tarot definitely, classes that get you into that space, your inner self. You have to kind of find your own way with that and find what resonates for you as, the door or the opportunity to take it, go through it.
And
And
it's a practice. It's a
yeah,
practice. It's a muscle, right? We all
yes,
like kind of learn to, like you said, like you learned to listen to it more the older
yeah.
you get. And Belinda, what did you want to mention?
I don't remember.
Oh,
That's
Old
one of the
age.
things about getting older, is to just take that lightly. It's like, okay, I didn't remember. If it's valuable, it'll come back, and let's go on.
Exactly. So, we talked mostly about like the positives of aging. Is there something that you don't like, that's really frustrating, that's, you kind of think, oh God, that's like getting older would be lovely if not this, or this? Is there anything you can like throw in so we make it a bit more balanced?
I have to learn that occasionally I need an afternoon nap. You know, if I've if I've been really busy, I need to either put my feet up or just lie down for a little while. Um, all the soft tissue with joints, which is what arthritis is so there are little aches and pains, and finding ways to deal with that, um, and to accept it to a certain degree. Um, I have something in my sacrum from an injury that was probably 25 years ago, and I need to do stretches, and I go to my massage therapist, and I use arnica periodically, and I take turmeric, curcumin. Um, it's in a way, though, I sort of like that my body is asking for care. Because in my early life, I kind of used my body to get what I wanted or where I wanted to be. And now it's more of a partnership. And, it's some days it's more fun than others, but it's like just how it is.
Yeah. I would say one of my frustrations at this age is that I often think that I can do more than I can actually do on a daily basis. I mentioned earlier that I lived a very fast life. I was the consummate multitasker. I could just handle it all. And so when something will come up, it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, sure, I can do that. And then I get to the day when there are like 3 or 4 things in it. It's like, oh my God, what was I thinking that I can actually handle all of this? And so there is a lack of syncing between what my brain says I can do and what my body says I can do. And that's a constant learning for me. My partner will tell you the same thing. Sometimes he'll look at what I've lined up and he'll just kind of shake his head and say, but I have to go through it. And, hopefully I am, learning to bring that more into sync. I would say the other frustration that I have is that my memory doesn't work in the way that it used to. Probably you can do this, Kasha, at that stage in my life, when I was in my office or at home, I knew exactly where everything was. I could access something, even if it was something that I hadn't, a file or something, right? And now I spend a fair amount of time during my day. It's like, now where did I put that? So the changes in my memory are also causing me to kind of live life a little more slowly because, parts of my day are taken up with trying to recall or trying to learn how to do something, on the computer that may be new. I consider myself to be pretty tech savvy, especially for somebody my age. But when something new comes along, I don't master it in the way that I used to, so mastery of new skills is also something that happens more slowly. So learning acceptance, which you mentioned, Belinda, and patience with myself, that I'm in a different place, in my mind and in my body, and be patient with myself and accept that this is where I am. I would say those are the kind of the two big ones.
Yeah, my mom said the same thing. My mom is 75, I think. And she said that, yeah, in her mind, she feels like she's 40, she can, like, alive, really, like, she wants to do things. But yeah, when it comes to actually doing them, or like body, mind connection, the body feels much older than the mind. Like, if I just simplified it, like, it feels like, in her mind she can do much more than actually she can do. So basically what you just said.
In a lot of ways that is a positive, and that is, another example of, figuring out, accepting, and, figuring out, because, I get down on the floor and play with my grandsons. I play. And, that's a very youthful characteristic, right? And I love that I'm able to do that, so that the lack of syncing between the mind and the body also can be a positive thing, right? Because if you view yourself as being younger, at least I don't kid myself when I look in the mirror, but, I think, maintaining kind of that youthfulness, I'm sorry, my phone is ringing, there's an asset to that.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me just.
That's okay. Yeah. Okay, so Belinda, did you want to add anything else to frustrations, or shall we move
Let's go
to
on. Yeah.
closing remarks? Menopause.
Yes.
Do you remember your menopausal initiation? Did you do it naturally? Did you take any pills? How did it go for
Mm.
both of you?
Well, because my mother had both breast cancer and cervical cancer, I didn't even want to think about hormones. And so I found some women who were herbalists in North Carolina, and they had a concoction. I think they called it the Three Sisters. But I started doing this herbal tea every day and probably did it for 3 years. But I mean, early on, I had a lot of bleeding that was not great. But after that, I went through it pretty smoothly. Um, my doctor once asked if I was having hot flashes, and I wasn't trying to be cute, but I said I was having warm surges. So it wasn't a hot flash, it's a warm surge, but it wasn't uncomfortable, and I didn't have night sweats. Um, and so it wasn't, I don't think of it as being a particularly difficult time once I got past the heavy bleeding, which
Yeah.
And
fortunately subsided.
did you feel emotionally like I'm feeling, less patient with people? I needed a lot more space. I need a lot of more space for myself. I mentioned before we started recording, that I feel like my face is changing, my style is changing, my body is changing. I'm not old, but I'm not new yet. Like I'm in this in between type of, like and maybe because I'm really reflecting on it, aware of it, like observing it, reading about it, I'm kind of like every little
Mm,
and I have a lot of time on my hands, so I'm kind of in
yeah,
it.
aware of it. Yes.
I don't have
Oh,
kids, I'm just observing me being menopausal or perimenopausal because I still have my periods really. But I feel a lot of these shifts on my like psychological level. And did you feel any of this? Like, did you feel like
that
you?
made, yeah, I have a moon in Pisces, so I've had all of that my whole life. um, I've learned not to take it too seriously, and if I need to cry, I cry. But, um, PMS was just not any different from going through menopause.
Yeah, moon in Pisces. That's true, actually. I mean, I agree. And we said something before we recorded as well that it come, or maybe we did record it in the previous episode, that it comes cyclically. It's not the
Yes,
only initiation
right.
as women that we remember. Like you're getting period, you're getting, I don't know, married. I don't know. That just fits into some of those big categories and big changes, but it's not necessary maybe for everybody. Like I have a lot of friends who just don't remember most of it. It's
Mm,
like, oh,
mm,
yeah, it was there, stopped my period. Some of them were really happy, they don't bleed anymore. Some of them very ritualistic, like it depends probably on the person. How about you, Ellen?
Yeah, I think I'm somewhat similar to Belinda, but I do remember the hot flashes and I do remember the night sweats. And, my husband and I used to laugh about the night sweats because prior to menopause, I was the one who needed 3 blankets on and he would have a sheet on. And then menopause hit and it was like, get these blankets off me. And, so it was kind of a striking turnaround that occurred in my life at that point. And I did have hot flashes. I wouldn't say they were as bad as a lot of other people, but I do remember going to the store that sold a lot of supplements and, trying to see if there was something that I might be able to to get to. And I saw this bottle that said hot flash, and it's like, that's the one for me. That was a combination of supplements, and I started taking that, and I think it kind of helped. I don't really know, but I don't remember huge mood swings or anything like that. It was really those physical things that were occurring at the time. I do remember that it went on for a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
both
So what
finally
ages? What age?
finishing my periods, they were, yeah. How old?
Yeah, how old were you both? Do you remember? Like kind of approximately?
I don't remember at all. I'm
Yeah, I don't
sorry.
remember when my last period was because it went on for so long. It was, like it slowed, it got lighter. It wasn't every month. It was like, and I'd say, oh, I guess I'm done now. And then lo and behold, I'd get my period again. And my husband used to tease me about that too. It's like, boy, you've been in this process for a long time. But I think my period stopped when I was probably 55, somewhere around there. Yeah. So,
Okay, okay. So
yeah.
none of you took any this hormonal, like what are they called? The HDR or
Yeah,
you know,
I
like any
actually
of this
was,
artificial medication? No, you didn't take it.
no, I was working at Stanford at the time, and they were one of the sites for the Women's Health Initiative. And we would meet with the project director of that project and get advice from her. And I felt like I never really was at a point where I needed to do that.
Yeah,
It wasn't, if it had been more severe, I would have considered it because I know some of my friends really suffered in a big way
yeah,
in
yeah,
menopause.
Yeah,
It's just very different for each person,
I'm
really.
not I'm not against,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like finding a good physician and finding out what a person needs for herself.
yeah,
So um it's to and if using things like herbs means that you start early and you do them consistently. So it's not oh, I think I'll try this for 6 weeks,
yeah.
so
Herbs don't
it's a
work like that.
commitment.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
exactly.
yeah,
But I think like some of my friends, for example, yeah, like one of them, like she couldn't sleep, like night
Mhm.
after night after night. And as soon as she took some of the medication, it's much better. Like, so that was kind of really messing her up, like psychologically as
right.
well, because it was just so annoying and frustrating. And yeah, the sleep patterns changed. Did you have that at some point that you noticed, oh, I don't know, sleeping at 8 p.m. and waking up at 5 or something like this? Or,
But I had like a low level. I was more depressive when I was younger, and um, I think I don't remember if it was when I was perimenopausal, but I started taking a low dose of an antidepressant, anti-anxiety, and um, so that even though I wasn't taking hormones, that helped. And now my doctor says that my body has become accustomed to this. It's a um, serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And so she said she just recommends staying with it. So, I pay like $6 or $10 a month for that medication. And so I do take that, and it certainly stabilized my reaction to, I had seasonal affective disorder, or, like today where there's no sun. I always respond better to sunshine, but it's not that there's a day like this and I just go, bleh, um,
yeah,
that it doesn't affect me as much.
yeah. Yeah,
Well,
yeah, Ellen, go.
no, it's just my sleep. Well, my sleep was actually affected before that, before menopause, and it's actually been an ongoing problem. But when we were talking about hormone replacement therapy at the time that I was going through it, I mentioned I was at Stanford, and at that time, they found a correlation between the use of hormone replacement therapy and breast cancer, that it increased the risk. And so a lot of people were staying away from it because of that risk. since then, only recently, actually, within the last year or two, that has been dispelled, that it does not, in fact, cause higher rates of breast cancer. And now, a number of my friends who are a little bit younger than I am, but several of them are now going on hormone replacement therapy because it enhances their ability to sleep. And, I don't know if I'm too old to start it or not, but I mean to my primary care doctor about that. It's like, would that be a benefit for me and my sleeping challenges to go on to hormone replacement therapy? I don't really know. But I think, like any drug, with that being one example, some people just take this hard and fast rule. Oh no, I'm never going to do that. I'm going to just stick it out. It's like, come on. If something is going to be a benefit for you, open
Yeah.
yourself to the possibility. Don't dismiss it on principle.
Yeah, exactly. I think also, we have a lot of medicine systems that work really well for prevention and preventative ways, but Western medicine deals really well with symptoms. So if we have anything that's really disturbing our life, like Western medicine is good to, check it out. At least, yeah, as you said, open yourself to possibilities. And definitely one of my friends, yeah, had this issue with the sleep, and it helped her a lot that she can function normally and go to work and like be a mom, and in general, like it was really like horrible for her. Okay, I don't know. I think we kind of arrived at some form of an ending. Well, maybe I have these pocket archetypes. I thought, why don't I pull one of the archetypes for each of us? And that's going to be like one for Belinda, one for you, Ellen, and one for myself. And it's going to be also a collective, maybe like guidance for some advice for getting older and appreciating it and accepting and enjoying it and thriving. So, what archetypal energies are important to kind of keep in mind then? Belinda, your advice is the village.
So that is the archetype of not being solo, but being part of a larger group. Lovely.
Community. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
community.
and we talked about it, right? That's important.
Right.
Ellen.
Yeah.
Oh, the dead end. Ellen, make something positive out of it, please.
Oops.
But I think we can take like I think you did a lot of teaching on that, because you said that there is really no dead ends like this, that as soon as you embrace learning, when there is an ending, but then there's always this opening. I think that maybe that's the way it would go. But what's your reaction to it? Like, how did you feel?
Well, the hand is like,
Well, if I may, it's
Sure.
like if I may pursue something and it's like either this isn't going where I thought it was going to go or where I needed to go, I can get stubborn and want to push ahead. And sometimes it's like, no, it's time to stop this and turn right.
Yeah.
And so if it is a dead end, that is, if it's not going anyplace, see it for what it is and take a different route.
Yeah. That's a good interpretation.
Anything else, Ellen, that comes to mind? Because we're also thinking like, a good archetype for aging.
Yeah.
I'm thinking also boundaries maybe, and like you said, like, how you started to appreciate yourself. And I think that also maybe comes with knowing your limitations, and that you don't have to fucking be the excellence of everything and know everything and be the perfect woman at everything.
And I think oops, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'd really have to think about it, but I think it is probably an attitudinal shift more than anything else that comes up for me that I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I'm sure there is, an opportunity for me to look at a way I might be thinking about something that isn't serving me. And so to reframe that, open myself up to looking at it in a different way, is, as Belinda said, don't beat your head against the wall, open yourself up to it and see if a change might be in order, even attitudinally.
Yeah, it's kind of when now we're talking, I kind of thought of the relationships, which you, Belinda, said, like don't expect it to be the same as the old one, that like the old one kind of died, but that there is this opening for something new. Not an interesting one. So we have the village, the dead end, and the last one is Anima Mundi. Oh, I got the whole world, the whole
Yeah.
wide world, all the planets. Learn astrology, people.
But it's also the anima mundi is the
Spirit,
soul of it
soul of the
all.
world. Yes, exactly. And I think maybe that's my idea and like kind of dream is to like never lose the enchantment, that there is always this like animistic approach to the world, that everything is alive, and a little bit what you were talking about, appreciation and gratitude. I think that's one maybe of the best practices that we can probably practice at any age. And it takes also courage to do it, because the world can be a harsh place, can be like really shitty place, can be unfair place. Some people have more privilege than others, but to find something good in your life, I think it's important. And kind of the universe somehow pays back. I don't know, it just like as soon as you appreciate it, there is always some sense of appreciation back. So we have the village, the dead end, and the anima mundi. 3 archetypes for getting older and appreciating it. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope people will enjoy these conversations. I think they're important. We don't talk about aging a lot, and it's a big part of everybody's lives. I remember at some point going, there to one of I was always fascinated with death and dying, and this. I went to some workshop on dying and death in 2012, and this guy said there is so many schools about birthing, like how to give birth to a child, how to welcome a child, how to welcome a soul into this world. He goes, there's no schools of dying. We should learn also how to die in acceptance, respect, peace as much as we can, right? Because you never know how you're going to die, but there is something about this as well. More schools for dying. With this positive
Well, there is no school for aging either. So I appreciate that you wanted to do this, Kasia. There is no school for this. We're learning as we're going, right?
My last
And
question. What do you think about these universities for the third age and stuff? Do you have it in your country? Because in Poland we have this university, I think it's called University of the Third Age or something like that. Trzeciego wieku, of third age. And there's just for seniors, there's a lot of different courses and people can meet and learn new things, and it's called university, but you don't get tested or anything. It's just you can come and learn new subjects and meet with other people. You don't have anything like that?
There are some senior centers or, community centers, but it's not maybe as structured as what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm familiar with one in San Francisco. It's affiliated with San Francisco State. That it's more learning. It's more education than it is, learning about aging. There is one in San Francisco, not where I live. I mean, it's more like Belinda described in terms of the senior center. Our library is also pretty amazing in terms of what they offer.
And the universities have, at my age, I can take courses at no charge. I mean,
Okay.
that's part of the university system.
Yeah, so maybe
But
that's something similar like this, because it's not
yeah.
like about aging, it's just for
Oh,
elder elder people, and that they can like learn and at the, you know, while they go there, they can meet people as well. It's more like to not get stuck at
uh-huh.
home and be by yourself and, you know, dead and forgotten, right? So yeah. Anyway, I just thought about this University of the Third Age.
Yeah.
Deaf schools,
Okay.
University of the Third Age, and some parties to finish
I
off.
love the name, actually, the University of the Third Age.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful name.
Yeah, that's how it's called here. Uniwersytet Trzeciego Wieku. No,
Yeah.
anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for indulging me. And yeah, I hope it's going to be on YouTube, and I hope people will come back to it or watch it. You know, thank you so much for sharing. And I will be seeing you, Ellen, at Belinda's class soon. So we'll see each other soon. Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
everyone for
you.
watching. I hope you enjoy it. Give us some love, give us some comments, give us some likes. And if you like these conversations, please share. Much love. Bye.
Thank